Welcome back, Frostburg State fans, to the video interview portion of the Frostburg Sports Awards for Week 13. After a week off because of rescheduling, we are back doing videos with our athletes, and starting off, we have Tom Mccoy from track and field, who just set a new school record in the pole vault. Tom, how does it feel to be the new record holder for the outdoor pole vault?
It's kind of surreal, won't even lie. Wasn't expecting to do that well in the last meet. I was going in thinking I'm going to get that record today since I came so close at the Messiah meet last week. And I knew that this meet I was going to be like, I'm going to get that record. I didn't know how high I was going to get, though. So when I got that 15.6 bar, I was like, that's pretty high.
It was very high, and you had actually you finished with a height of 4.72 meters, which was the top of the 15'6", as you mentioned. But the jump before that, you had a 4.62, which actually was the one that broke the record. Were you aware of that when you did that, and then the 4.72 happened?
Yes, I intentionally set the bar to 4.62, knowing that was gonna break the school record, and I ended up getting it first try. So that was a great moment there. So I decided to set the bar even higher, and after 3 attempts, I ended up getting that bar too.
I noticed on the video that was posted on Twitter and got a lot of support for that as well. I noticed when you had known that you cleared it and you kind of sat up on the mat, you kind of just had this look of shock and awe on your face. Did you really surprise yourself with how high you got?
Yes, it was a huge surprise. I did not think in the runway, when I was standing on the runway, I did not think I was getting that bar. I was really just thinking to myself, okay, I'm just going to take the attempt, and if I miss, I miss. But I ended up clearing, and I sat up looking at the bar that I just cleared, and just kind of was in shock that I had cleared that 15.6 bar, which I had been dreaming about since high school. So it was pretty surreal.
I looked back at some of your previous results from this year, and you started out really the outdoor season and a little bit of the indoor season about 13 feet was kind of where you're gauging yourself early on. Now you've jumped up a full 2.5 feet, which, if people don't realize, it's very, very hard to do in pole vault in just basically a few months. What has been the success for that growth and being able to continue to increase your height every single week, it seems?
Really, is just the mentality of confidence. I feel like you just gotta be confident in yourself going down that runway, on and off the track as well. And when I started off the outdoor season, I kind of backtracked just a little bit. In my indoor season, I backtracked maybe like a whole meter from my PR, which that ended up doing a lot for me. So I felt like if I did it again for outdoor season at the beginning of the season, it would have helped, done wonders, and so far it has. So
on Saturday, you guys had about the nicest weather that we've had all spring, and we can say nicest because it's currently been snowing for the past 2 days after you had mid 60s to 70s out in Charleston. But with that warm weather finally coming out, did that help at all too of being able to have the muscles relax a little bit and knowing that there's maybe a little bit of wind that's helping you, but just not having to worry about cold and tightening up at all?
It definitely did help a lot. There was a pretty decent crosswind, however, and whenever I was standing on the runway, it took me about maybe like 3 to 5 minutes to actually start running down the runway because the wind was just kept blowing and blowing. But other than that, the weather was perfect for vaulting. It was perfect vaulting weather.
A few weeks ago, we talked to Mark Vaughns and Clay Washington from the sprints, and they, were kind of going back and forth where Mark had won the hurdles and then Clay won the 100, and they like to have a little competition between each other and pushing each other in their events. And then Mark, who has done a little bit of pole vaulting as well, came on and we talked about you a little bit, where you're all very much more supportive and kind of helping one another. But do you have any of those little competitions here and there? Or are you very much just a unit that's looking to get everyone as high as they can in the vault?
I think mostly it's more of like a community rather than a competition. We do have competitive behavior at times, but I think pole vault in general is just more of a community than a competitive event. We're always cheering each other on. Always want our teammates to be clearing those high heights. So it's kind of a unity in a way.
We looked at some of the top heights for the pole vault in the region and in the conference. You now are the leader in the MEC and in the entire Atlantic region, which includes the PSAC and some of the other independent schools around here. When you're looking at some of these events, and I noticed early in the year it was a Glenville State athlete I think had topped you in one of his heights, but you now have that height of top marks in the conference, in the region. Do you ever look at those things or think about them in terms of where you're placing looking ahead, or you're just 1 meet at a time and you just want to get your best height possible at that individual meet?
I don't usually look at the rankings, mainly because I don't know how to find them, but I do try and see, just kind of look at the next meet and see about if I want to get higher in that next meet, because I tend not to. I always want to look at the rankings because I don't want to be too confident in myself.
All right, Tom, thank you for coming on today to talk to us. Obviously, we've got snow blurring down outside, but we appreciate you making the trek out to the athletics building here. Congratulations on your record, and hopefully we can see you break your own record a few times more here without this season.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
All right, well, next up, we will have Jamie Roberts from softball, who is our female athlete of the week, so be sure to stay tuned, and as always, go Bobcats. Back on the Frostburg Sports Awards with our female athlete of the week, Jamie Roberts from softball, who pitched and hit quite a bit in the last week for the softball team. Jamie, obviously there's a lot here to talk about and go over, but just if you could give some kind of overview of your week and how you think you performed.
Overall, I think we did pretty good as a team. We came out, we knew we had 4 different schools to compete against, and that's 4 different looks. I think we did a very good job adjusting throughout the week, especially with hitting. Kind of got off to a rough start, but I think we adjusted well. So I think overall we did pretty good this past week.
Against Alderson Broadus, you were kind of thrown into the starting pitching role. Our other starter, Katie Chappell, had kind of gone down with an injury, wasn't able to go. And so when you found out from Coach Vasco and Coach Chastain that you were going to be the team's number 2 starter, what was your reaction to that?
I was very excited to be put in that position. I'm one who's going to do whatever it takes for the team to get a win, and if that's pitching or if that's playing first, I'm going to do it. And I think just the mentality of, Kate being hurt, I needed to step up. It was a time that I needed to step up to help the team, and that's what I did. So.
In that game, it was a big win as well. A one hitter, one error, the only 2 runners on base that you allowed, and a little bit of disappointment, I guess you would call it, in the end when that infield single just got in with that 2 outs left in the 7th. But still a very good performance to work off of. And then later in the week in the last game against Glenville, another shutout for you. Just 2 basic confidence builders, I guess you would call them. Is that something you'd agree with?
I would definitely agree, and to get a shutout, it's a team win. So obviously I credit my defense for that. Everyone played amazingly in the field, and it wouldn't have been possible to get, a shutout in 2 games if your fielders weren't on. So they definitely had my back in that game, and I appreciate that.
The big series that stood out to me was the Notre Dame games. 13-12, and I believe it was 8-7 in the second game. And the 13-12, I was on the broadcast and calling the game, and to me that was the game of the year so far, with just the back and forth the entire time. It felt like every time Notre Dame grabbed the lead, there was a little bit of air that kind of got sucked out, and then the hitters came up and just got everything right back. And was that something you saw in the dugout as well? Just, the offense is not going to let this team lose today.
Pretty much. I felt that, they came out scoring 4 runs. We came right back with 4 runs, and I think that's important to do in a game. So definitely, hold us in games and stuff. But we just had a lot of energy that game. We wanted to go out and win at all costs. So I'm glad we came out with a win, but it was definitely a stressful game.
One of the big moments that I remember, and it was either in the 4th or the 5th inning, I think it was one of those, and Notre Dame had just gone back up by 4, and Laura Gilford, who's a freshman, and stepped up. When you see her and the way she plays, she's often leading off and bunting and trying to get on base using her speed. She has that little bit of power in her that she can bring out at any time. Hit a big 3-run home run that kind of got the team energized and back into it, and she just seems like a spark plug on this team.
I could agree with that. I think we have a lot of spark plugs on this team, and I think all throughout the lineup we can find someone. I think everyone has the capability of hitting one over the fence, having that power hit. We saw Sierra. She came out, and she's a slapper, and she hit a home run. Everyone has the capabilities of hitting that, that hard shot, and I think that we just need to find it, and we all need to click, and we need to string hits together. But I definitely do agree Laura is a spark plug, we have a bunch of sore quads on the team. So someone's just got to step up and fill that role, and I think she did a very good job of doing that in that game.
And then sometimes you just need that little base hit squeaker that gets by the infield, which you did, to walk it off in that 13-12 to give yourself a win on the mound as well. And then the second game, Katie Ernst came up and she got the big hit for the walk-off. And in that moment, and for those two, obviously with Katie's it was a little bit dramatized because of the way the umpire didn't correctly call the runner safe at first, but then found out later. But for those walk-off wins, you guys, it seems like those were really just two big moments in the year for you.
I could definitely agree. Just that feeling of, you're competing all game, you're down to the last inning and it's tied and you come through with a hit. It's just the best feeling in the world, and I'm sure Katie can attest to that too. I mean, just knowing that you come through and pull through for your team. You need to be clutch in those situations. Like, you got to get the hit, so.
Speaking about getting hits, and you actually right now are in a 15-game hitting streak on the year. You lead the team in average. You lead the team in hits overall. So you're getting it done both on the mound now and in the batter's box. Was that something that you had kind of expected coming in, of being, one of the leaders on both of those? Or were you just kind of, I'm going to do my job and whatever happens, happens, and this has been the result?
I think my mentality is do whatever it takes to get a win, and if pitching is what it takes to get the win, then that's what I'm going to, put my heart into. But I've always been a hitter, so, it's kind of my thing. I just like, getting base hits. It doesn't have to be over the fence every single time, so I think just that consistency is important. I also play first base too, so I stepped into that role. I've never played first base before in my life until I got here. But whatever it takes to get a team win, that's what I'm going to do. So.
Big end of the season here coming up with, hopefully, fingers crossed, another couple of games tomorrow, and then the weekend as well. But this really ramps up in terms of everyone's getting ready for playoffs and try to get seeding, and we're right among the leaders. It's basically us and West Lib competing for that top spot in the North Division. When you guys, prepare for weeks coming up, and for you personally, is it, one game at a time and just trying to get those results, like you said, anything to do to win? Or are you, at any time in the back of your mind looking at, West Liberties keeps winning, so we got to keep winning, sort of that kind of stuff?
I don't compare myself, or I don't compare the team to other teams. I think it's one game at a time. You never know what they're going to show up that day. You never know how they're going to perform, or even how we're going to perform. You got to just focus on that one game, focus on getting the win, and then move to the next. And even in a doubleheader, you can't look forward to the second game. You got to get through that first game first, because everyone counts at this point. So.
Well, Jamie, thank you for coming on today. Obviously, you've just come from practice, and classes are now back in full swing after everyone got kind of a day off in between all the snow. But really appreciate you being here. Congratulations on your week, and hopefully we can have some more shutouts and big hits from you throughout the year.
Thank you.
All right, wrapping up the awards. Next up is Taylor Sindall from women's lacrosse. She will be talking about her team's performance over 2 wins, so be sure to stay tuned for that one in the end of the interview. Wrapping up the Frostburg Sports Awards for Week 13 is Taylor Sindall from women's lacrosse, after she got a couple of really big conference wins over Davis and Elkins and Notre Dame College. Coach, big week for you. How do you think your team performed?
I couldn't be prouder of them. I think, like I said in our last little write-up, we suffered a very heartbreaking loss to Notre Dame at the beginning of conference play, and I really think the girls turned it around and used that as motivation, and we've just been on a roll, and I think it was great to see them. We've been in some games where we've been down and haven't been able to come back. That was kind of the tale of our entire first half of the season, is getting down and not being able to come back, and I think, getting those 3 conference wins in a row before going back to playing Notre Dame really gave us that confidence we needed, and then going into that game, there was never a doubt, no matter what the score was, whether we were up or down or tied, that, we were going to come out victorious, even at the end of the game, 1 minute left, and they have the ball, and we knew that they weren't going to score and that we were going to win. And I think it's a testament not only to, the players that were on the field, but, our sideline as well. I've never heard our sideline that loud, and they were just fired up the entire time, super positive, cheering everyone on, and I really think that made a difference in the game on Saturday.
We start off the week with the Davis and Elkins game, and kind of a weird one for you guys, where normally, women's lacrosse is played 12v12, and then you have that number of players on the field, but because of the number situation at D&E and a couple injuries in the roster size, we allocated playing down to 10v10 for that game, and How did the players react to it? Were they kind of excited to play essentially like a small-sided, I guess you'd call it, game?
It was weird. I think I was in the mindset that, 10v10, like, we're going to dominate. And the first couple minutes, the first quarter, really, it was a close game. And, I kind of gave it to him a little bit. And I was like, you guys need to wake up. Like, what are you doing? And finally, Steph King looks at me. She goes, Coach, this is hard. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, there's less people on the field. Like, we have to work a lot harder. And I was like, oh, I guess I didn't think about it that way. But they responded really well, and we were able to get a lot of people playing time and rotate a lot of people in. And I think, again, like, it was a good test for us of, them kind of getting chewed out a little bit from me and Coach Lyric, and them responding. And I did say that to them at the end of the game. I was like, way to, take criticism, take, us kind of coming at you guys a little bit and using it as motivation and going out there and crushing it. So it was a very unique experience. I don't think our girls prefer it at all. But, we were able to figure it out and get the job done.
Couple of big performances in that game. Lily Stevens with 5 goals, Anna Kearney with 4 goals. Lindsay Coleman, who you mentioned, a couple of goals and 5 assists in that game as well. They obviously will get the headlines. Lily got Player of the Week. We'll talk about her a little bit from the Notre Dame game as well. But one player that has stood out to me, not exactly a starter every single week, but a player that gets a lot of playing. Britton Leonard had a couple of goals in that game, and she just always looks so composed on the ball, and flowing with the offense, where there's a lot of freshmen on this team. Some of them have handled pressure, some have struggled a little bit with it, but she just always seems to know her job and do it pretty well when she comes into games.
Yeah, I think if she can stay on her feet, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I joke with her, she needs to get a new pair of cleats. But no, Britt is just, she's super solid, like skill-wise, but she also is a great teammate. And she's super coachable. She's the first one on the sideline when someone else does something well. She's always cheering them on. And then when she goes in, she just has this mindset of not like, okay, I need to go out there and be a stud, but this is my time and I need to make sure I get the job done, whether it's getting an assist, scoring a goal, or just controlling the ball. And our girls love playing with her. She always is throwing trick shots at practice and, doing a bunch of crazy stuff with her stick. And so every time she goes out on the field, it's like we're all almost waiting. We're like, when is she going to score behind the back? When is she going to do this? When is she going to do that? But she's just a really good kid, and I think she really gets, what it means to be a part of a team and to work for playing time and to really take advantage of it when she gets it. And again, the girls just love playing with her. So she's been awesome, and she scored her behind the back, and of course she fell because she always does. But it was great to see, all of her hard work kind of finally come to fruition in that moment.
We get into the Notre Dame game then, and a big performance from Nicole Gray in that game. 3 caused turnovers, 7 ground balls, made a bunch of big saves in that as well. We talked about the heartbreak of the first game, and Nicole wasn't 100% at that time. Came in, stepped in against a very good team in their own right, and the conference leaders, along with us now, tied for first place. We got the first few goals in that game and kind of got settled in. Nicole did not have the best effort on their first goal, kind of squeezed by her, but from that moment on, it was, credit to Notre Dame and finding a way past her, because other than that, I mean, she really was a big reason why we won.
Yeah, she was phenomenal, and I think, we just collectively as a whole, the first time we played Notre Dame, didn't play our best game from goalkeeping to defense to offense. Like, we just struggled in that game. And I think, going into having such a great game against Charleston, having a great game against D&E in the first half, and then going into Notre Dame, I mean, we scouted that game like it was the national championship. We did a lot of film, we did a lot of reps at practice, and we're lucky we have a great volunteer assistant who plays very similar to Notre Dame's top scorer. So we had her playing in practice and shooting on the goalies and everything. But Nicole she's been phenomenal this season. She's not at all playing like a freshman. She seems super confident. Apparently she's not. But, she plays with confidence, and our defense has a lot of confidence in her. And I think, she's just one of those kids who is always able to, as long as she's healthy, able to rise to the occasion and the level of play of the other team. Even when we, opened up the season against 2 ranked teams, we played UIndy. And she played the first half of that game, and after that game, the UIndy coach came up to me and was like, your freshman goalie is a weapon. Like, she is going to be, something special for you guys. So I think us having confidence in her, the defense having confidence in her, and yeah, she let that first goal in, and it was kind of trickled in. It was a little unfortunate, but I think after that, instead of getting down on herself, she really used that as motivation. And she had some awesome turnovers, just, picking off passes, great clears, ground balls. I mean, I think, she's had games where she's had more saves or better stats, but I did tell her, I said, you just had the game of your career, at least for now. I mean, there's going to be obviously more great games for her to play in and everything, but really proud of how she played and how she's really coming into her own.
And that kind of, sufficed in getting MEC Player of the Week honors as well for the Defensive Player of the Week for her for the first time. And the other Player of the Week that we're going to get into, Lily Stevens, the Offensive Player of the Week, mentioned the 5 goals against D&E, 5 big goals and important goals against Notre Dame. And it just seemed like watching the game every time that she had the ball in her stick, when we weren't running the weaves and running through trying to get passes, she could take on any defender they put on her, go one-on-one, use her speed, get around, and then fire a shot past the goaltender for the Falcons. And just a player that, again, similar to Nicole, where you can just put her out there, you know what you're going to get from her, and she's going to produce.
Yeah, and she's one of those players. I mean, I had a conversation with her early in the season that, she was kind of quiet for some games or didn't have a ton of points, and she was like, Coach, I know that I'm going to make a difference when it matters. She was like, whether I'm scoring the goals, I'm assisting, or I'm moving the ball, she's like, I don't care as long as we're winning. She was like, but I know that when the game is on the line, I feel confident in myself. And she's, put in a ton of work. She does multiple individuals a week. She also always somehow finds herself matched up against some of our toughest defenders. And, she takes some hits in practice, and I think that really has prepared her to step up in these super physical games. D&E, very physical team. Notre Dame, always a physical game against them. And so I think that's a credit to her for putting in the work, but also to our defense for providing that kind of game-like experience for her and our other attackers to, know what it's going to be like when you play against a team like that. You're going to get bumped, you're going to get nudged, you're going to get pushed, and you have to be able to play through that, and I think she really has excelled.
Another player, and one final one that we'll bring up, and who really stepped up in that game was Carrie Hayes, a freshman who stepped in. Megan Keller, another freshman, had gone down with a little bit of an injury. Usually will be the starter, but Carrie got the start in this game and just kind of brought energy and speed and really kind of, razzled Notre Dame with how she played. They weren't expecting that, I don't think, looking at that, and then scored a very big goal at the end of the game, I think, that tied it at one point. And a player that just came in and brought a new dimension to the offense, it seemed like.
Yeah, Carrie is phenomenal. She is another one of those players who you love coaching because she's just so coachable. She always works hard. She's always putting out her best effort. And I think, she struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season. And I think as a whole, our team struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season. And we've had some injuries and things like that. And I think she really has stepped up and finally kind of come back into her own and what we expected of her all along. I think her, along with Chrissy Milburn and Julia Battalato, freshman midfielders who are really crushing it for us. And I think, Mara O'Neill has always been, a stalwart for us on both ends of the field, but she's been battling some injuries. And so knowing that she has 3 other players who can come in and help her out, when she's not feeling her best, has given her confidence as well. And I think our midfield unit as a whole just looks really, really good with those freshmen stepping up and having that experienced leader with Mara there. We might only have right now 4 midfielders. Hopefully we get Megan back soon, but they were able to get the job done against the number 1 team in the conference, besides us. And, I think I'm really proud of how they're not playing like freshmen anymore. They're not timid. They're confident, and, we are confident in them, and so are their teammates.
You look ahead to this week and a pretty big game tomorrow against Belmont Abbey, who was, sort of a late addition on the schedule, a reschedule after Alderson Broadus had to cancel their season, but a pretty good matchup with a team that's pretty good in their own right. And you look at the records, they're pretty similar. You look at us and them and who we've played. And then back to the conference this weekend. It's now going to be 2 pretty tough games for you guys with the Notre Dame and now this midweek. Is that just only going to help you guys moving forward where, people look at the conference schedule like we're beating up on these other MEC teams by 10 goals, but, every game is a challenge and having these tough games is going to better the team for the future.
Yeah, and that was the whole idea of picking up Belmont Abbey was, we need to continue to push ourselves to continue to get better so that when we do hopefully make it to the conference championship, we're ready. And that's not to knock any of the other teams in our conference. We have Charleston, who played us super tough the first time. They never give up. They played for a full 60 minutes. D&E is always tough, and then West Virginia Wesleyan has really, done a great job this season of improving. But I think playing Belmont Abbey tomorrow, I told the girls, I don't want you guys to go into it being nervous or thinking like we have to win this game, we have to keep the win streak alive. Instead, look at it as a way to prepare us for the next level of our season, which is, again, hopefully making it to the conference championship. And I think we stack up pretty well. They've got some girls with some pretty impressive stats, but they've also played more games than we have. And they also are in a conference that is not super competitive besides the top 2 or 3 teams. They're beating teams in their conference 23-5 or whatever it is. So, I always tell the girls, like, if we play our best game and we put our best foot forward, we can compete with anybody. So we're hoping to, work through some sets and some plays and some defenses tomorrow, and really show what we're made of. And regardless of the outcome, feel super prepared going into these last 3 regular season conference games and getting prepared for the conference championship.
All right, Coach, thank you for coming on today to talk to us. Congratulations on your 2 big wins. Hopefully we're going to see some more in the coming weeks here and leading up to the conference championship game. But once again, congratulations on your week.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, well, that will do it for this week of the Frostburg Sports Awards. We'll be back next week with another set of athletes and a new coach, so be sure to stay tuned for that one as well. As always, go Bobcats.